All right. So good. It's picking up my voice. Worried it went there for a sec. We are returning to this. Again, last you recall, we completed the decay route, right? And let me already just bring up, the coffin again. So again, already just gonna go ahead and bring up these endings. Realistically, again, I have no idea where this engagement ring's supposed to be, and the items on the wiki page doesn't even acknowledge its existence. So what I'm thinking is likely we're just gonna get the other two endings, right? The again, the other two endings, right? So, but again, so that'll be 4 out of 5, which I'm satisfied with. Which again, the big thing being, as we had already seen, you know, again, like I said, as we had already seen, right, is that I do honestly, I actually really like this theme. And I think this came out in chapter 3, this like OST or like theme. Like I think it's really good. But again, and yeah, we'll see. I mean, again, so again, what's weird is again, so this is why I'm curious about Burial because Burial it continues the cliffhanger, right? However, it also starts its own sort of branching segment out of, going the other route, when Lane like trusting Andrew, right? So again, that's why it's like I think that's very curious, but you know, so what were we supposed to do? Just go upstairs, right? So and again, I talk about how like grandpa does have a point here, right? And that's just kind of the reality, right? Like I feel like people are too much willing to say shit like, oh, just do what like makes you happy, right? Or whatever. I feel like there's a very hedonistic outlook. I don't think because I think that's more of like a millennial. I 100% think that's more of like a millennial outlook. Granted, again, that doesn't mean I'm supporting like boomers, right? I think they're just, detached from reality. However, the point being, you do need to like actually like you need to be able to kind of take a step. And again, this is something my parent, they're older Gen X, they just cannot do. Like you need to be able to kind of take a step back and see where you are and where you're going and like what the end result is. Again, people, and that's why again, you say love is an illogical emotion, right? Because his son should have done that, right? But again, he ended up with Renee, right? Who is again not a good person to be with, like, putting it there, right? So again, but that's kind of the main thing there, right? And it just ends up being like, again, we'll see. But again, his grandpa does have a point, right? But again, it's also like the flip side being class of '09 flip side. The flip side being, once your son makes that, because yeah, you can tell him, right? Like, oh, I think what you're doing is you're going down the wrong path. But you should still support them at the end of the day, right? Because that's their decision that they made, you know. Yeah, also I was gonna say that's a pretty, crazy thing to say about, what was it, like daughter-in-law, right? Yeah, I was gonna say that is such a crazy thing. That's like, dude, this is why it's like, all right, that's a little, and again, because his suspicion is that we aren't, dads, right? Which I feel like is pretty stupid, again, but obviously it's more so he just doesn't want to believe. So, oh, and then, tricked him, right? Oh, yeah, so, damn, also, this is apparently his first time hearing that. And again, it's funny how, and that's why I pointed out. Because again, dad, he says, oh yeah, I'm not raising them with violence. And then Andrew retorts saying, oh, you're not raising us at all. So again, it's like and again, I feel like it's like it is the mentality of like because people think like, oh yeah, I'm doing this thing, right? But when in actuality, it's like, that's irrelevant, right? Like you can try to boast, oh yeah, I don't hit my kids. I mean, if you still neglect them, like that doesn't make a difference, right? You just don't beat your kids, right? you know. And again, but to be fair, and again, I say that's reasonable on the part, again, granted, him berating his son like that's pretty crazy. But that's reasonable because like you also on the double flip side, you can't be expected to mooch off of, your family and your parents, right? Especially if you're not doing what they feel is best for your position, because if they were living like if they were in a really good position, it'd be a different story, but they're not. So that's very reasonable for grandpa to be like, look, if you want my money, right? Like, if you want me to support you, this is what you're going to need to do. It sucks, but like, again, you're not in a really good spot, but this is what needs to happen. Like, you know, so the church service looks like it's a Sunday. Oh, yeah. And then we just go upstairs, right? Again, hello. And again, so I'm also, I really don't give a fuck. Like this game is not this deep. So yeah, we go back down here, right? And then talk with these two. So damn, And yeah, now we're gonna, and again, it sucks because it's like Andrew had such potential, but of course, his environment kind of ruined that, right? Because again, that's valid. And bitch, bull, greatest lie in existence, and shit isn't working out fine. Then you have your son, right? Also, I was gonna say kind of low key a crazy thing to say, because like again, the reality is you don't want kids super late either, right? Because then it becomes the issue of like one, you don't want your kids taking care of you, two, but then it's like, oh, you really kind of derive yourself the opportunity to kind of have, grandkids, right? And see them grow up, So. Yeah, I was gonna say bullshit, phase. Like, come on. Yeah, that's also I was gonna say, and yeah, again, I was gonna say like the dishwasher. All right, to be fair, I'm gonna be 100% honest. You can go without this. I probably said the same thing when I first played through. You can go without a dishwasher. You can't go without garbage disposal. You need a garbage disposal. You don't need a dishwasher. Just hand wash and dry. Like like, that's why I'm like, I don't know. Like, you can go without, a dishwasher, right? So, but yeah, because we're weirdly enough, I think we had to go this way to get the blueberries, right? So, oh, nope, I don't know. I'm lying. So, again, this part is gonna be kind of another boring part, because I do remember again this being mostly like exposition. I was gonna say we can't, oh, do we keep going down, right? So I was gonna say we need, I guess, later on. And again, it really because by the time, again, obvious, by the time they kind of realized what was going on between, again, Andrew and Ashley, right? It was just too late at that point. Like, hello? Oh, I guess that's enough. Unless there's no, it should be enough. I was gonna say, is this not all of them? So yeah, where is that? Oh yeah, because don't we go through like here? Oh my God. What was it? Eight or five or 358. What? All right, 853. You're kidding. What? 358. Is it 385 based on order of thickness of the trees? That's a long shot, but you're all right. I'm not gonna lie, I'm low-key pretty fucking pissed off. So, or 853. Dude, all right, I'm not gonna lie. How so you gotta be kidding me. How the fuck did we know what the code was last time? And I'm not tripping, right? Yeah, that's 8, 5, and 3. So how the fuck did we get this last time? Because I'm actually like genuinely like, because there's no real indicator on the trees, right? Guess I'm gonna go through. So 358 is the first one. 385. Then we go 538. There we go. I was like, let me just try every combination, you know. Yeah, I was gonna say kind of crazy that so what, bro, you gotta be kidding me. They even got the blush in young Andrew. What the hell? Again, and I'm genuinely curious where we're supposed to find this like engagement. Yeah, give me that fucking hammer. And then what are we supposed to do? Yeah, we're not going down here either. Because yeah, that's where Ashley runs off to, right? So yeah, we got what we need to so just head back, you know. Again, and we come back in water later. I do remember that. And yeah, Ashley ruins it all. Just leave her be, you know. And yeah, she ends up ruining his book, right? But again, that's the reality of, kind of the job of parenting being put on him, right? And again, interesting that like, this he saw his kind of apprehensiveness, you know. So, like again, I think that's interesting there, you know. All right, so let's see, and again, still just going this way. Don't know if these little sticks are like relevant. Seemingly not yet. About this rock. Yeah, it's just got random junk laying around. Oh yeah, is this where we break this in? I guess not. Because don't we go oh yeah, I have to take the lighter from here. Because isn't this wasn't this they're actually like a yeah, I was gonna say we see the ruins of an old you know, and again, it already had all of them active, you know. And I guess this is his first interaction with that entity, right? And again, so like I said, but so as of now, this is basically all the same, you know, right? And then there just happens to be a hole there. So, and then this is where you go and grab all those sticks, right? Or you can't grab the roots. It's just also, are we? I thought we'd tear that down at some point, but oh, so there actually is one more thing we need. What is it? Was it down here and I forgot? Yeah, because I can't really see shit down here. Oh, is this where I was gonna say, yeah, this is where you take this out. So let's see. Yeah, just eat shit. I mean, it literally is. I was gonna say, what do you mean it's not your fault? It literally is, you know. Yeah, this is where we open that, right? And then yeah, and again, it's interesting though that they're, bonding over their own like almost disdain for Ashley, you know. Because what I will say, again, it is weird and it is something like I will say there is definitely a factor or aspect of like, you know, and I say this as an older brother, like there is definitely a factor or aspect of, you know, okay, hello. Oh, we're gonna like get like a ladder or something. But there is a factor or aspect of, not, it's not, I don't even want to say child favoritism, but again, more so like parents like bonding, over like, I don't want to say like necessarily making fun or belittling their kid, right? But like definitely kind of, I want to say setting like sorry, I'm trying to like concentrate because what the fuck am I supposed to do here? Um, what the fuck am I supposed to do? So something I can climb. What am I fucking grabbing? Like, is it something? I guess it's gotta be something from outside. But yeah, oh yeah, I have no idea what we're supposed to grab here. Oh, oh, and then I hoist it from the inside, right? But yeah, definitely like, kind of it's like a fulfilling, it's like a self-fulfillment thing where they'll pick on their kid for something and then that just ends up being like a defining trait and they resent them for that, right? So yeah, and again, where's grandma, right? Because isn't this where Ash, oh yeah, and then Ashley just starts changing and Andrew just knows he's fucked. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was gonna say crazy thing to say. Grandpa's like, damn, he's bonding with his son. He's like, damn woman these days. They don't shut the fuck up, do they? That, yeah, kind of a crazy thing but that is low key hilarious. And again, what sucks is at the end of the day, Andrew's the victim here, right? He's the one who's gonna get blamed for everything. So, and again, on top of Ashley again just ruining his notes, right? So, And again, but this is why, like, because Grandpa has a point. His again, like, Dad had no reason to like have kids with Renee. Let's be real here, right? Like, she's literally like a terrible person. Like, let's be honest here. Like, but again, love's an illogical emotion, right? Again, I do question why my dad had, not because my mom's a terrible person, but just her family, like not just her family is like horrible, but like just has abysmal genetics. So it's a question of like, why would you have kids with a person like this? Again, and that's a question that's always gonna get asked. And again, but it's something to where it's like he's gonna get blamed for that, right? So what I'll say is you really can't blame Ashrew or Andrew for like just completely. And again, what's interesting, and this is what I'm gonna say. What's interesting is it seems like Grandpa's kind of taken an interest in Andrew, right? Because like this is something I don't think I really like talked to or probably didn't pick up on or talk about, but like because the way Grandpa sees it, is he probably views his own son as like a failure, right? Basically, he had all that potential and promise and threw it away to hook up with Renee, right? So in a sense, he views, the generation removed as kind of, like I think he has a connection to Andrew in that way, right? Obviously, we know it never comes to fruition, but again, it is interesting here, right? So like, because again, I was gonna say like, so because obviously, Dad kind of puts an end, but we know, funny enough, that was literally like Andrew's plan, basically, right? His plan was basically to study hard so that he could just get out, right? Oh, are the seeds here? And then, and Ashley comes and ruins everything. Yeah, and again, honestly, I think the crazy thing, is like, because, like, let's say if Andrew would have killed himself, right? I mean, obviously that doesn't happen. But let's say if he would have killed himself, right? Again, it obviously would have been, oh, like a whole sob story. Like, oh, we never saw it coming. Oh, he was such a good person, right? It's always usually you know, after like the passing where people talk about that, right? Or if Andrew were to kill someone else, or like if Andrew killed, Ashley, right? Which I wouldn't be surprised about. And again, what's funny is we now know that again, that's what obviously Renee said. So, and again, we know Ashley just ruins and destroyed. Also, I was gonna say, because I don't, do we get a choice here? Yeah, and again, I think this is the moment where he snaps. And again, because this is the issue, right? Because this is Renee could have genuine. We know there's some level of relational aspect, where they both recognize, like they both recognize, Ashley's sort of issues and problems at this age, right? Because, like, let's put it this way, normal functional parents, right, in this position, right? Well, first off, again, I had I made the black screen video on it. Because if they were normal parents, or if they were like actually like good parents in this position, what they would do is they would probably send Ashley off to, or maybe Andrew. I think the reality is, because if they can't take care of Ashley and they pawn her off to Andrew, basically, right? Granted, because if they weren't completely neglectful, and because like Renee could have had a conversation with Andrew here, she could be like, "Look, we're just going through a rough patch right now. She's young, money's tight, right? Finances are rough. We just got to get through these next few years and we'll be in the clear. You'll be older, you go off to school on your own. She'll have grown up and matured, right? Because she could have effectively had that conversation with him, right? Or again, again, send one of them off, right? Again, like that's like it sucks, but like that wouldn't be the worst idea here. But again, unfortunately, she kind of rather than takes this moment to do that, right? Instead, she just blames him, yet again. So, and again, but the issue being in, I guess it was only until again they only realized it was far too late, right? And they had no one to blame themselves because usually what happens, I feel like, right? And obviously, I'm not a parent, but I'm, again, the son of two parents, right? Who has recently, again, kind of moved on, right? Like I'm fully, basically, pretty much fully independent at this point, right? So, like, again, I've, moved out. I'm pretty much my brother. He's still semi-dependent, but, he's kind of working his way, and that's just because, he's still living with them, right? But, it's something to where I think the regrets of a lot of parents are, a lot of the regrets they have are usually, involving their kids, right? You know, at least one again, ones that like whose kids kind of go off, right? And it's almost always about, how they like raised them, treat them or whatever, what they did or had them do, and especially if that's something that, I mean, granted, this game's a bit of an extreme example, but if that's something that, continues to affect them to the present day, right? Like, let's say their own kids resent them, or like, let's say their kid has some like issue, resulting from that, and the parent wants to make up for it, right? They want to kind of like put the past behind them because maybe they're reaching retirement age, want to see grandkids, right? But at the end of the day, maybe their kid doesn't exactly feel the same way. He's got his whole life ahead of him, so. And again, also, yeah, I was gonna say, like, because and this is something I talked about where up until like let's say high school, my mom could probably like, beat my ass realistically, right? Once I got to high school, there was no shot of that happening. And that's kind of the reality of a mother like son relationship. At some point, you're not going to be able to like beat your son anymore, right? You're not going to be able to like, or like, let's say, even if you do like smack him around, or like whatever, like you'll do that and, it'll be a mutual thing. You'll do that and he'll receive it both knowing damn well that he could actually like fuck you up if it really came down to it, so. And again, but this is the reality is that, she's a demon, right? Like, again, that's like, let's be real here, right? You know, And again, like, but this is like he didn't even say he hates her. He just this is like the honest truth. Like you need some time away from your sibling. Like you need alone time, right? Like that's just reality, It's again, this is so interesting because this is basically a complete vision of the future and what we see in the present day, right? And again, you really have to question whether Renee and kind of, her last, or I guess, those final moments kind of realize, where she went wrong, right? And again, because now, a decade, in the future, right? You kind of see the end result of this. So I was gonna say, mom didn't even go back to her. I definitely brought that up the first time around, you know. Yeah, and then they try to give this sob story, like, man, I hope Ashley has no friends. Like, oh goddamn, what a loser. And yeah, again, he just fails. Because again, the reality being if that's, how it's gonna and that's again, that's the case, right? That's why like one of kind of my biggest regrets and one of the big things I put on my parents is holding me back in academics in high school. That's a really big thing I put on them, and it's going to seem petty. But again, my issue was that because again, one, I never had control over my own academic career until realistically, like, I don't even want to say beginning of college, because you can make the argument that that just stems from high school, right? But really, until I was like an upperclassman in college, I never really had control over my own academics, right? Which is, in a sense, my own career and my own future, right? Interchangeably, right? So that's something I do put on them, and especially the nature of like how that kind of came about to be. Again, like because and also like because I was never really a normal kid, right? Like I wasn't in classes with people my age. It was always people younger, and again, all that, right? And it's something I do put on them, and like I mean. If they were to ask, well, it'd more so be my dad, right? But again, like it's something to where and I feel like most people probably have a thing or two that they feel the same way about, right? Again, in hindsight, you know, things could or would have been different, but it's just kind of the reality, right? Because yeah, again, your mom doesn't even care about what you do. And then fast forward, so kill Nina. All right, yeah, I was gonna say like we get in this like random bullshit, like cutscene to transition to chapter 3. So but again, what we're so and again, we only shot him once. We only shot the guard once, and we blasted the fuck out of Andrew in the dream, right? So again, you know, that's why I was gonna say. So kind of the interesting, and I'm surprised we get an option to save here. So again, but now we're in the present. Okay, so and I'm gonna end this here because now we're finally again, so Lord knows what this engagement ring is, right? Like, who knows? I don't really care. We can still hit up 2 endings without it. So that would still be 4 out of 5 total endings. And we're, again, that's what we'll get, right? And then that's something to where just we'll kind of see. And then I already kind of gave a black screen video of my thoughts as well as, I guess I don't think it, funny enough, I don't think I ever uploaded it. Let me just double check right now, right? So again, let me double check, So let me look at my videos. 1950, right? That was the most recent MLB one. Which one was 2335? All right, I think that one was supposed to be, yeah, that one's supposed to be the one where it's like all right, I see. Yeah, so I just never so I'm gonna upload this now, right? So here we go. Let's see. The Coffin of Andy and Leyley, Chapter 3, Thoughts slash Opinions. Or because I need a long, CT Co. Chapter 3, Thoughts and Opinions, plus I'll just say, could the graves be normal? It's like kind of positing the question, right? Or could the graves turn out normal? Or I guess what's the past tense? Could the graves have turned out normal? Right? Turned. Could the graves have turned out normal? So yeah, there we go, right? I just wanted to make sure it was up. So there we go. But I think with that, that's a good point to end because what we'll do is we'll just continue on with chapter 3. So for the two where the engagement ring isn't, relevant, right? So apparently you chase you like have a chase at some point, and then whether or not you actually continue down that impacts whatever ending. Who the fuck knows? We'll see. That'll be for the next part. But again, with that, don't really much else to say. So yep, that's it for this one. See you in the next one.